Alright guys, NEONVICE here with Andy Diamond, also known as Diamond Field. How's it going?
Oh, good. How are you back, Phil?
Pretty good. Having fun in New York thus far.
Great.
So can you tell me a little bit about yourself and your music?
Sure. Right now, as Andy Diamond, I have an act called Diamond Field, which is a synthwave specific act.
A lot of your work focuses on vocals.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us about that as well?
Yeah, I really like working with vocals because I think it adds an extra dimension to the music.
Mm-hmm. And specifically, you've worked with Nina with your last single, and there were various remixes for that.
Mm-hmm. I met Yasmineh, the vocalist, on Neon Summer on the internet, and we collaborated. She sang on that single, and I subsequently remixed some of her original songs, and now we play together for her own original music.
Cool. And so now you're playing live.
Mm-hmm.
Is there another step to that, or?
Sure. Nina and I, we just focus on her originals. She plays keyboards, guitar and sings, and I play bass. Mm-hmm. And we have a laptop that plays the beats. We might get a bigger band at some point, but the really great thing about that is that we're looking at flipping it so that we can do Diamond Field live, simply the same arrangement, but they're my songs and she's singing the vocals. So
now that you've been playing live and stuff, and you've done plenty of remixes, what sort of is the next step?
Really concentrating on original stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The Neon Summer single was a real deliberate attempt to create a debut for Diamond Field.
Mm-hmm.
And it included getting remixes from other artists in the scene. So we really put the word out there, music video, all that stuff. Really looking forward to creating an EP or finishing an EP. We've already got a couple of tracks underway. They're vocal songs again. One has Ruys, singer, who I work with for the Twin Peaks compilation. She's a great singer, fantastic artist. We've got a really nice little groovy slow synth number that I think people are going to love. Another track with a guy called Ruys, who lives in Singapore, who's a friend from New Zealand. He's a fantastic singer. It's kind of like a Simple Minds type song. Another one with Lockie James doing the vocals, which is going to be more Michael Cimbello, Michael McDonald sort of stuff. And probably a couple more, and hopefully all of those half of those will be remixed by other artists in the scene.
Nice. Yeah. Do you sort of have a date in mind, even maybe a month, a season?
I tend to be working a little faster now with my music, and half of those tracks are completed. I'd probably say summer, Northern Hemisphere summer 2015. Yeah. I've seen some new artists that have come out and put out an album within a week or something.
Yeah, there's... You want to talk about overproduction?
Yeah.
Do you think it devalues anyone's work?
Not really, because if you're putting out tons of stuff and you are good, and it's good stuff, then why not? And people always want to hear more stuff. It's actually quite a challenge when you have a favourite artist and they only put out one track a year. That's really kind of like, oh man, I wish they would do more. So
it does get you excited though. Whereas if somebody's posting every 2 weeks, every month, you're like, oh, okay, I'm excited about it, but I'm still listening to their old album.
I think like LA Dreams is a good example. Jupiter 8's another one. Those guys just, I don't know. I mean, if you're an artist, you just get jealous of those guys that they're constantly putting out this stuff. And yeah, it's just an ongoing cycle of album. I mean, to give you a perfect example, one of my favorite artists in the scene has been Christine, and she's had a couple of EPs over the last 3-4 years now, and her debut album has been just like this, and it was going to come out last year, and now it's going to come out this year, and I'm really stoked to hear that record because I love her music. But she's not putting songs on compilations or doing this or doing that. She's just concentrating on her record, and it will come out in the time that it comes out, and everybody will
be excited about it, and and
So in one way, like you said, you create that anticipation, for an album to come out. I know there's criticism by some people to say the scene is flooded by music all the time. It's just a symptom of people really being interested in trying to contribute to the scene, and we should take it while people are interested in producing that. I know personally when I make a song, I have a little group of a couple of artists like Dave from Phantom Ride and Ed from Sunglasses Kid, and I'll put up a private SoundCloud link and say, hey guys, what do you think of this track? And they say, oh yeah, it's cool. And when you've been listening to a song for so long, you get too close to it and you can't make judgments sometimes. You need someone else to say, that rocks, or to say,
what are you doing?
Yeah. And it's really great because now I get those guys sending me little private links and saying, hey, this is the track I'm working on, how does it sound? And I did something like that with Lucky James recently, where he had a track he was writing, and he said, what do you think? And I said, shorten the intro and make the bridge like this and add another synth. And he thought that was just perfect. So everybody is willing to kind of give and take.
Yeah, so you're not native to New York. You're actually from New Zealand. What sort of journey has it been to get here, and what do you value about the city?
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey. My wife and I had always talked about coming to the States, and we had to figure out how to do it. And my wife got offered a job here in New York City. And when we were presented with that, we knew exactly what we had to do. We had to take it. If you visit the US and you're from another country, you have like a 9-day sort of leeway you can come and go. You're not allowed to work. The US Immigration Department is very, very strict on these things. And a lot of people get caught out. They say, oh, I'm going to come to the US and I'm going to play my guitar. And they get to the airport and the customs officer says, oh, you've got a guitar there, sir? Yeah, I'm going to probably try and play some gigs. No, you're not. See you later.
Go home.
You're surprised how many times that happens. So they do take things seriously. So to actually work here, you've got to go through quite a lot of legal and government stuff to actually show what your credentials are, that you can do a job that no other American can do, and all these kinds of things. You've got to be very unique. So it takes a lot of planning, a lot of research on your part. You've got to prove that you are an in-demand special person that is needed here.
All right. So could you also tell us a bit about what got you into 80s music specifically, and what inspired you to make that sort of music?
Yeah, it's a funny thing, I was actually making music in the 80s. I grew up, I was a teenager in the 80s, and I started, I was listening to the stuff first time around, and it's when I started to learn bass guitar, and I was playing in bands at the age of 15, and some of those bands had synthesizers in them. So I always stay behind and go through all the presets on the DX7.
And just like burr, 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 burr.
Yeah. And I got to touch those things and take them home and play around with them at home. And but I also liked the music because it was just on the radio. So I never really stopped making 80s music. I was always trying to throw in a synth to the music, and some of the bands I was in would go, "What are you doing? I can't put synthesizers in our music. What are you talking about?" So I always try to throw something in. And I remember in the early 2000s, there was a local band who had a song, and I asked if I could remix it, and I got the stems. So it had a Juno 60 in it, and I thought, these guys are great. The sound's coming back.
Yeah.
I thought, how can I do a remix that is even more 80s? So I got the stems and I put it together. I put these big tom rolls and synths and vocoders and stuff on, sent it to the radio station, and they played it. And the band's management heard the song on the radio, called up the station and told them to stop playing it. The band hated it. They absolutely hated it. They didn't want to be associated with it.
You're putting toms and vocoders in the same track?
Yeah.
Of somebody who isn't necessarily influenced by the 80s?
No.
That's dangerous, man.
It was a remix. It was definitely a remix. And I wanted to, everyone else was kind of making house music, and I had dabbled in trying to make house music, like Detroit type, deep house and all that kind of stuff. And I was mildly okay at it, but I couldn't quite find the groove. And there's a few tracks on my SoundCloud that are examples of that. But I always still was trying to put this 80s
examples
stuff
of deep house, or not being able to find the groove.
Both things. And deep house, I mean, you can judge for yourself when you listen to it. But I was trying to throw this synth stuff in, and there were a couple of acts coming out at the time, like Fisher Spooner, with their Emerge record, which was complete 80s stuff but modern. And I thought, finally, people are doing it. And then people like the Killers came out, and those sort of acts started to have this real 80s thing. But then they kind of, the Killers and things like that, kind of tapered off with it and went more in a rock direction. So I was waiting for this 80s type sound, which kind of almost like the Rapture and stuff like that, and Metro Area and all those DFA type acts had this thing going on, but then it kind of, the soul kind of came out of it.
There's so much opportunity to put a contemporary influence on things now, and I think it really helps with the sound rather than making it not 80s enough.
Yeah. There's a real important point, I think, with anything like this, is if you look at who's making this 80s music, it's a lot of young people who weren't even born in the 80s doing it. I think that is something that really is a telling factor in anything, because you not just have people like me who went first time round, you've got young people who never were there, they just like the sound. And that's a really telling thing, because people, people
I mean,
are
89 here,
sure,
so...
But you're still 80s, but I'm talking people who might have been born in like 1990 or 91 or something. They just love the sound. And it's not about nostalgia for them. It's about a sound that they dig. They think, wow, this is really cool. And yes, it is being re-honed, redeveloped, because you can't get away from technology making things sound bigger. You've got more tracks to play with. Things sound cleaner and all that kind of stuff. And
you have a full set of all the synths. Like, no one could... I mean, the drum samples and everything, like, you can fit all that on your computer, whereas you would need a warehouse of synthesizers to be able to recreate something like that. Alright, well, thanks for being with us.
You're welcome. Shake, thank you very much.